So what we're planning on doing is putting this up on our website with some information for our members, and also we can put information in our newsletters just to sort of alert them to these products and to please be extremely careful about their contracts they sign and the cost of doing this. But we want to make sure that you had seen it because it's a pretty scary situation that people can get themselves into.
I have questions for you, Ed. Jerry?
Scary, it's horrifying. As I asked earlier, where is this company or whatever it is, where are they advertising? How are they getting to people with pensions?
I don't know because I haven't seen ads on TV or anything like that. I did after John made the comment about the going on Google. I typed in pension buyouts and you do see a series of companies who pop up at the top the way Google does it, where it's the sort of paid placement. But I don't know other ways. I mean, I haven't seen anything. I don't know how they make themselves known. It's not that much different from other companies that you do see advertised. It's my money and I want it now kind of thing. It's just this one's probably a little bit more expensive. But they are those kinds of products that you do see advertised fairly frequently, just not those particular companies.
I would hope that our constituency groups would take a look at this and try to raise the level of alertness in our folks, because that's just a crime. Thanks for bringing it to our attention.
So when my leg starts to shake and I start tapping my foot, I appreciate that you're going to raise the awareness and of our members, and we're going to put this on the website, and that's a good first step. But this is the third largest pension fund in the country. I would suggest, and I don't know where this goes, I don't know if there's anything we can or should be doing, whether or not it's under our purview. President Obama's appointed somebody to oversee a consumer watch group that's primarily to look at credit card debt, et cetera, that potentially future Senator Professor Warren has been speaking about for a period of time. Yeah. I would like to see us reach out to whomever we have to, at whatever level of government is necessary, to not only educate people about this, and to the extent that we can, put these people out of business.
Yeah, absolutely.
If the law is such now that they can get away with this, a law needs to be drafted so it doesn't happen. If this has to go into the corporate governance division and we need to do something around predatory lending, and to the extent that we can have a voice through corporate governance or through CII, I don't know where, but for me as one board member, to watch that is really troubling. And it kind of gets me like a bit angry to know that these companies are out there exploiting people in crisis. This is the military. I don't know if we need to go to Senator Feinstein's office, where we need to go, but I'm pretty confident that if the appropriate person in this agency picks up the phone, you're going to get in touch with the right person to talk about this. Because if this is where they're exploiting military people in crisis, and the number of Americans that are in crisis, financial crisis right now, they're going to target teachers next. They're going to target wherever they can. And people are going to make decisions because they're stuck. They don't know where to turn. They don't know what to do, and they're going to make bad decisions about their retirement security. Right. And I think that's how it affects us. Right. We're a pension fund, and one of our core values is retirement security. So through the chair, I don't know how this goes, where this goes, and what. Maybe we can talk a little bit offline, but.
Well, one thing, I mean,
it's troubling.
Yeah, I mean, Senator Tom Harkin, who's chair of the Health, Education, Labor, and Pensions Committee, is looking into this thing. We can sort of work with them through John Stanton and try and see what assistance we might be able to provide in terms of how he suggests dealing with it. The difficulty is particularly with that kind of an arrangement, it's hard to, it seems it's hard to figure out how you legislate against that kind of arrangement, as, prohibiting people from setting up joint checking accounts. We clearly have no visibility when somebody has a joint, when somebody's in direct deposit, which the vast majority of our members are, who owns that account. We don't get that kind of information. So, but I think we would want to do whatever we can do to make sure, at the very least, that people don't get involved in these things, and to the extent that we can put them out of business, as you put it, that would be a good thing. But I think it's difficult to identify how you actually make that happen. But we'll certainly reach out to the U.S. Senate, who seems to have an interest in this, and see what assistance we can provide on that.
I have a good contact at the new federal agency, actually, who specializes in predatory lending. Let me contact him. Yeah.
Brian?
Next week, I'll be attending the National Association of Pension Plan Attorneys meeting in Washington, and I'll bring this up also with the attorney group.
Through the chair, if you could just keep us informed as to the progress that you're making or not making,
Yeah.
Will do.
appreciate that.
That'd be perfect.
I guess, I'm not sure we need additional laws on this. To me, this is pretty clearly an assignment, and I don't understand why it is characterized as anything other than that. But, without belaboring that point, if you could elaborate on why we have no visibility on this, because I'm not sure, it seems to me that there has to be something that we can do at this level. And I'm not sure why we can't.
Well, it's not necessarily a question why we can't. I think it's just the issue is that the information that we would need for direct deposit is the routing number and the account number, and not necessarily the names of the owners of the account.
But why can't we ask for that?
I suppose we could ask for that. I don't know if there's any reason that we couldn't ask for that. It's just additional field.
Could we adopt a policy that said, this deposit will be made into an account that is owned only by the beneficiary or the beneficiary and his or her spouse?
You probably would not want to do that.
Well,
You'd want to define it. Maybe you
family
could.
member,
Yeah.
however you want to define it.
Right.
However you want to define it, but if anybody tries to, and alert the bank that we will not deposit this check into an account that doesn't fit within these parameters unless they get special permission from us. Maybe it doesn't eliminate everything.
Yeah.
And I guess my question is, why isn't that something that we could do?
I think there may be an issue about whether or not we have legal authority to impose that restriction, number one. And also, I'd just be worried about the unintended consequences, that there may be other situations in which people legitimately have a joint checking account with some other entity, and I don't think we'd want to inadvertently exclude that. We can certainly explore that. Please give me a list of other situations where. Offhand, I can't think of them, but that doesn't mean they don't exist.
And that's my
Yeah.
point. There is a law that says you cannot assign this. And to the extent that I don't want us, quite frankly, to be complicit in breaking the law.
Okay.
And at this point, we can't, in my mind, turn a blind eye to this possibility. I liken this to a situation where, in the family law situations, alimony, where ex-spouse says, this money should go into my account. You have to go through an entire process
Right.
before we will pay that money to anyone other than the named beneficiary. And we have very strict rules about that. And we just want, I'm not necessarily, what I'm suggesting is that we ask for a second layer of reporting before we deposit it to an account that is joint at all. And if they meet this, they're fine. We're not going to catch everything. But if it's to the beneficiary and a company, we require additional documentation. And if we think there's something squirrely about it, then, you say, by the way, we'll pay it, but we're going to report this to the Attorney General, by the way. We're going to send a note that says, by the way, this is happening. But it seems to me, while we're waiting for federal or state legislation to come up with something that may or may not work.
Right.
We should be doing more than just throwing our hands up in the air and saying, isn't this awful? Now, we can do the education at the same time.
Okay.
And we can educate our participants that this is why we're asking for this extra layer of protection.
Right.
Or extra layer of information. But if you're doing something other than the ordinary, you know, two names that you say are related to one another in some way, family members, you got a power of attorney, whatever, that, you know, we will ask for some additional information. And sometimes just asking for that additional information may be sufficient to move some of these people off the dime and say, you know, well, maybe we shouldn't we should leave the CalSTRS participants alone.
Right.
Because it's a harder nut to crack than the one that we want to crack.
Okay. Well, we can certainly take a look at our opportunities to address this issue for sure. And we'll let you know sort of what we develop as a result of that.
Yeah, I just echo what Mr. Geely said. It's appalling, and so we've said it before, but I just agree with everything you said. And I guess one of my questions was, well, to me, it brings up this question, we brought it before, just about financial literacy in general, just that, you know, whether we have active members or retired members, it's just reading the fine print, understanding what we're signing. And so I do think there's an education piece, but you know, the legislation piece takes so long. And so I like what you're saying, Michael, about a balance in between of, we need education, and I certainly think we need to talk to senators, but I would love to see if CalSTRS can do something in between for our members, because it's, I think the other question, or other thing that was rolling around in my mind is reverse mortgages. I've been hearing more people talk about reverse mortgages, and I've been noticing more sketchy issues around. I mean, I think when I first heard about it, I thought, oh, you know, maybe that's legitimate. And then I kind of went online just now to look a little bit more, and, you know, there's some sketchy things around that, and I don't know if, so I just think those two issues about reverse mortgages, and then I didn't really know that much about pension buyouts until this information item today. So I appreciate the information, but if we can work on the education and then something at the STRS level and then do the DC conversations, I think it's just appalling. So appreciate you bringing this to our attention.
You know, I think if this were at 3%, we'd probably say, hey, that's a pretty good plan. And it's the problem is that it's at 30%. It's absolutely outrageous. And I always think, because although the 30% is a crazy number, you know, this is the kind of thing that investment bankers think about, is putting products like this together and seeing if people want to buy them. And this is totally outrageous. But I'm wondering whether one way to stop it is whether there's any possibility that we could offer some kind of advance at a reasonable rate. And I don't know whether there is anybody else out there who does do that. I mean, are there public pension plans that would say, you know, we will advance you the next 4 years of your monthly pension payments at, you know, an interest rate that's a reasonable rate? I think there are lots of problems with it, but I mean, one way to stop people from successfully getting people to sign up at 30% is to offer a much better alternative.
We you know, up until 2011, for 10 years, CalSTRS offered the opportunity for members who were retired to take a partial lump sum of their benefit, which would provide effectively the same thing. And effectively what they were doing was, it was discounted at 8%, because that was our assumed rate of return at the time. Virtually nobody used it. It wasn't heavily it wasn't heavily let people know, because it's, quite honestly, it's of concern to us. There were very strict limitations on how much you could take out to make sure it was above a certain amount of money that you had coming out of your pension. But it's not a great use of retirement funds to use it to pay for lump sum things, and fortunately not many people used it. But it was a feature that we used to offer in the plan, but like I said, it was very, very rarely used.
Chris?
Sorry. Chris Selman, your Chief Investment Officer. And Grant's not here, but I don't know, Terry, you want to comment? I know PERS offered loans people could borrow against their retirement fund, I think while they were working. I don't know if it was when they were retired, but I know that's been problematic as of late. Did they offer it when they were retired? Just when they're working? Yeah. Okay. Anyway, I know we looked into that because I had a board member ask a couple times about people borrowing that to do their home loan. And then we did offer reverse mortgages for a while, but we stopped that program. It was not widely used. Only about 6 people ever used it. But that's all I know of in terms of people getting in that business.
Michael?
My comment was that, I was gonna comment on the loan thing, but I agree with what's been said, that, it's not a great use of retirement money, and we shouldn't encourage it. I think it's not the sort of business we should be in, and I would advise against going into the loan business as a competing, to compete with the private sector on this. I think that we should just take the position that we consider this to be an assignment which is prohibited by law, and that we will not accommodate this where we believe it's happening, and if you and believe that it is legal, you can try to prove to us that that's the case, but otherwise we're not going to do it. As Harry said, we're the 3rd largest pension fund in the country. What we do may make number 2. Excuse me.
We are number 2. We have to dispel
unless something
it.
happens today that we're not aware of.
Clarification on that.
I was thinking about Romney's pension fund. You know, we should, what we do as a policy matter will get attention. And I think it will be instructive in that regard. So I don't think we should take what we do lightly because of that. But I think that we should consider ways to be proactive, if at all possible.
Thank you, Michael. Pat?
Retired teacher, CalRTA. I've had a request from several of the organizations. Would it be possible to get a copy of this to post on some of our websites or some type of thing so we can get the information out? We're totally appalled by this story, and we don't want to see it repeated.
Yeah, it's probably more efficient to link back to our site. We had to clear licensing rights and do all sorts of weird things. It's probably more efficient. Yeah.
They can embed it?
Anybody can embed it on their website.
Okay, but our site, but they're,
As long as they link back to the original video, so the PBS, then
Okay.
they're okay to embed it.
Have them talk to Robert.
Wait a minute. I thought you were in our law office, not necessarily the technology thing.
I actually have a background in computer science.
Geek squared.
pretty much.
And meat cutting. And meat cutting, yes.
I'm versatile.
Yeah, John Anderson, California Teachers Association. Within CTA, we have a policy and principles regarding this topic, and I wanted to share it with you because we also are going to implore you all to do whatever you can to prevent this from happening to our teachers. And, well, it goes beyond that. Our retirement principle is that CTA believes all Americans have a right to retire with dignity, reasonable security, and a right to a retirement income which does not decline in value. And these plans definitely make the retirement benefit decline in value. Besides, as we saw from the video, loss of dignity involved in making such deals and so forth. So again, including Mr. Lawson's idea of trying to do something internal within STRS, to look into that closely to see if we can prevent the assigning of the bank accounts and so forth to companies or corporations. And again, with all the connections that everybody has here, yes, I'm very hopeful and would like to implore you all to use those your resources all that you can to prevent this. Thank you.
Thank you. Sharon?
Yeah, this is like 10 minutes ago now, but I was just gonna respectfully disagree with, what Mr. Rosenstiel talked about in terms of the percentage, because to me, it's not about the percentage, it's about the fact that you can borrow against your retirement, and so I wouldn't care how low the percentage was. To me, the value of having a defined benefit pension is all about, when I retire, there's gonna be something there, and there's, penalties from taking that out earlier to keep me from not touching it. And I guess I feel very strongly about just, especially in the economy we have right now, we just need our members to have a secure retirement. So to me, I just don't like the idea of us dealing with that at all. So that's just my 2 cents.
Thanks, Sharon. All righty. Thanks. Oh, yes.
Bob Foss-Green, retired teacher, CalRTA. Just a suggestion, every year you put on retirement workshops, and to me this would be a very good topic to include in the agenda for your retirement workshops, to let people know when they start getting it, they should keep it.
All right,
There you
good.
go.
Thanks, Bob.
Thank you very much. All righty, moving on our agenda, we did separate legislative committee out of the committee reports on item 9. So Terry, is it you that reads into the record the audits and risk management? Are you vice chair? Without me looking? Okay.
Do you need a report, Sherry?
And it looks like you have a recommendation to the board also. There you go.
Thank you, Madam Chair. The Audits and Risk Management Committee met on Wednesday, February 1st, 2012. The committee discussed the annual report of benefits, underpayments, and overpayments for fiscal year 2010-2011 and considered material contained in the report of the NACD Blue Ribbon Commission on Audit Committees. The committee reviewed CalSTRS Ethics and Compliance Program with the Ethics and Compliance Officer and reviewed CalSTRS data security systems with the Chief Information Security Officer and Chief Technology Officer. The committee received an update on CalSTRS response to the Independent Auditor's Report on internal control over financial reporting and the progress of the Quality Assurance Review Corrective Action Plan. The committee also discussed the proposed revisions to the Audit Services Charter and current progress on the internal and school employer audit plans. By direction of the committee, I move to adopt the recommended revisions to the Audit Services Charter with the modifications recommended by the committee.
So Terry has moved on behalf of the committee. It does not need a second. Are there any questions about that motion? All in favor say aye.
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 All opposed, nay. Terry, we've recommended we've approved those recommended revisions to the charter. Thank you very much. Then we also have items B, C, and D. These are consent. I need,
Move approval, Madam Chair.
it's been moved. It's been moved and seconded. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, nay. Okay, the motion is passed. We've accepted all the other consent agenda items. Jerry, would you read into the record the legislative committee, please?
Legislative Committee met on Thursday, February 2nd, 2012. The committee received a report on upcoming federal legislative activities in 2012 and information on state legislation introduced in 2011, subject to legislative action in 2012. The committee also discussed the concept of proposing legislation to allow CalSTRS to recruit the COO and CFO candidates from a larger pool of candidates. And now for the Teachers Retirement Board agenda, item number 9A, and I'd like to ask Mr. Reyes, is this something that you want to have the opportunity to just vote no on, or?
I think you just move it.
Just move it is okay?
Yeah, you just move it. You move it and then.
All right, good, okay. By direction of the committee, I move to adopt the recommendation to sponsor state legislation in 2012 that will allow CalSTRS to recruit a larger pool of candidates for its COO and CFO positions.
Okay, it's been recommended by the Legislative Committee, again, does not need a second. Any further discussion? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, nay. Any abstentions? And I'm sorry, I didn't ask for abstentions on the one prior. All right, that motion has passed.
Do we want to let the record show it was Mr. Reyes?
I think that
Got
that
it.
Jennifer probably has that. All righty. So then moving on to consent agenda.
Before we move, I like to at least abstain, not vote.
Oh, there we go.
Yeah.
That's what I was trying to find out. I tried.
Let the
Michael,
record
smack him
reflect
around over
Mr.
there.
Reyes abstained.
All righty.
Yes.
Thank you, Pedro. All righty. Consent agenda, item number 10, this is the Appeals Committee, open session. Michelle?
Info, so I just read the record?
Yes.
The appeals.
Oh, sorry, I wasn't doing my job either. There you go.
The Appeals Committee met on Wednesday, February 1st, 2012, and took the following actions. The committee amended the closed session agenda to hear a briefing on a recent development in an appeals case. The committee considered and adopted the proposed decision in the case of Melissa McCumber, and the committee issued an order finding that special circumstances exist to extend the time to issue a final decision in the Deborah Pace appeal by no more than 30 days. The committee also received a report from Peggy Plett regarding the number of administrative appeals scheduled between now and August. And there are a lot.
And we just need a motion to adopt that consent item.
Info, do we?
It's,
Is it?
don't we still move to adopt a
No, I
consent
don't,
on this
no,
one?
you just get the
We did it.
report of the action, as long as there's not a, I mean,
I noticed it was
as long as there's
listed
not an
separate.
action.
It's info.
That's why it's separate.
Yeah, that's why it's
Okay.
separate. We tried to
Got it.
separate the consent from the
That's one of our
action
new
consent.
things on our agenda that I wasn't paying attention to. Okay, thank you. Never mind. All righty, Jack.
Great.
Now we know why it was a separate item. I couldn't figure that out.
Exactly.
right.
Okay, just two things. For new board members, I give you a written report, and then usually there's something that's happened since we did the written report just to update you on. And I'm going to do this brief PowerPoint with you on some legal issues regarding the ballot initiatives. But before that, to lighten things up, I have a letter here from one of our members, and. And I just want to underscore for you, this is the month we're implementing our green bill, which is the bill we passed that saves the system quite a bit of money, but really given that we were sending out so many paper advice statements when really things don't change month to month, we were becoming consistent with financial institutions you all belong to, which is send them out when something changes or if you absolutely still want paper. So some of our members are calling customer service to opt out of that because they still would like paper, and some of our members are calling customer service to make sure they understand how to use the website so that they can use the electronic file cabinet where advice statements are. But this month, we actually answered an all-time history system high for a number of contacts here at CalSTRS, this 27,000 in our service center, and the average would be about 20,000. So it shows you just how busy the month has been. And because some of these calls are technology related, they take more time than just answering a question about the benefit structure or about the system or how to do this or how to do that. So I just want to stress for you that our performance levels are going to be certainly a bit off this month, but the staff is really trying to do their best to help the retirees do whatever they'd like to do with that service. So I think this will capture the emotion of dealing with some of these service issues for you. This letter was written about one of our service agents. His name is Kai Kwan, that spent a lot of time with one of our retirees. So let me just a couple paragraphs here. Here we go. I wish to commend Service Agent Kai for his extraordinary patience and courtesy while assisting me in registering online to receive my monthly retirement statement. I am old. I rattle easily. I am not technologically literate. And I'm a constant irritant to myself as well as to all who know me.
I love it.
Kai's persistence in ensuring that I accomplish the registration process successfully. He had to repeat the directions to me more than several times, and more than several times I had to repeat, erase, and repeat more than several steps. He was a superlative. My conversation with Kai began at 11:47 a.m. and concluded at 12:46 p.m. I would not be surprised to know that he sacrificed his lunch hour in order to assist me. He deserves recognition. If I could, I would submit his name to Rome for instant beatification. At least reward his service by treating him to lunch or giving him an extra hour of free time. Believe me, he justly deserves it. So I love this letter because it does capture the extraordinary time it takes sometimes to do these service calls, but also I think the relationship we have with our membership over doing this kind of customer service. So it's been a hard, long month for the service center, but it looks like they're getting through things well. Yeah, yeah.
Upstairs answering phones. They don't close until 6.
Oh, good, so
Is that when they've done a good job?
It
where they've
is.
gotten lots of letters, like it's the balloons?
Yeah, there's a tiered system of the nature recognition. We have our virtuosity program. Yeah. So just in closing, take you back in time to 2003 and 4 when we had a very contentious issues around ballot initiatives involving Assemblyman Keith Richmond and some proposals involving the governor. And at that time, we did a briefing for our staff and the board to make sure we followed the law around communications, around ballot initiatives. And in fact, it was so contentious. It didn't occur to our website, but one of our other public pension systems. There were challenges that the information put on those websites were not legal in terms of what can and can't be said around ballot initiatives. So some of the case law has changed since that time, and so what you may have thought was fine back then, it might be a little different today. So we wanted to quickly show you a version of the presentation we did with our leadership group, and all the employees at CalSTRS will receive communication. Again, not just how we print up things here at CalSTRS, but things that occur when you're at a private party or a dinner conversation, and how you represent yourself relative to ballot initiatives. So I'll go ahead and do this, and Brian's going to fill in if I stray. But the initiative process follows these 4 steps, which obviously first someone comes up with an idea, places it in petition form, files it with the Attorney General. The Attorney General determines if that's acceptable and titles it. It's then circulated among voters to gain the legally numbered signatures. And of course, that's the step we're on relative to the ballot initiatives that I highlighted in your book and those that Ed went through with you at the last board meeting. And then if successful, it's placed on the ballot. So part of the question here is, when does this guidance take place relative to this 4 steps? And does that conversation change legally as we go through these 4 steps? Okay? And some of this is common sense, but actually some of it also is not. So that's why we do think this communication guidance is so critical to the staff, and hopefully it's helpful to you. What's prohibited? Well, it's prohibition from using public resources to promote a political partisan position. The prohibition doesn't apply to informational or educational expenditures where the agency gives a fair representation of the facts. And I think that's that bullet particularly is what we normally associate with what you can and can't do around ballot initiatives. But in a minute, you'll see it's actually a little more complicated than just being sort of a neutral educational party. Public resources, when we talk about them, includes money, things paid with public money, staff time, our facilities, our material, and equipment. If you've ever seen some of the disputes in the paper around improper use of public resources, it's a rather strenuous definition. So again, we don't want anyone to get sloppy in the building about what that means. Impermissible activities include the dissemination of advocacy materials prepared by others, including a link on our website to those advocacy materials. That bullet in particular was the issue highlighted back in 2003 relative to some other public pension websites. So that's one that we would be very careful about what we post. Dana.
Jack, how many links do we have on our website that go to other agency websites or to other stakeholder groups'
Well, we
websites?
provide white papers, and different policy papers sometimes on our website. White paper.
They link to us, but it's us providing a link on our website to them, right?
Yeah, and we
do
do
we
have
have
links
any?
on one part of our website, but we also have materials. We don't have any that are advocacy materials, but we have analyses of public policy issues that some might interpret to be biased information. They're not, or that might violate this norm. And that was the issue last time, in terms of whether or not the materials went over that boundary. Do you want to think about that for a minute?
No.
Yeah.
I'm just trying, I don't think I'm making myself clear.
Some other groups might prepare analyses of these ballot initiatives, and if we were providing them physically as PDF files on our website or linking to another website that provided those,
Right, so
that
what-
would be a de facto advocacy
Right.
of those
So that's
positions.
what I'm asking you is, do we have any links on our website to any outside entities?
Yes.
That might be putting advocacy materials on their websites?
Well, we need to be careful. We linked, I'll give you an example. We linked to the National Association, NASRA, and on the NASRA website, it's a library of other types of information, of all kinds of white papers and things. So we would want to be careful on that type of link. One good example, because that links to a whole bunch of other stuff.
Okay.
Anyway, again, more.
That's where I was trying to get.
No. Other impermissible activities, funding or distributing promotional campaign brochures, or urging voters to support or oppose a ballot initiative. And again, urging there is underlying the idea of the campaign aspects of this. Because when you look at this next bullet, this is where I think things get confusing. Permissible activities include these, and neutrality is not a requirement of our activities. Obviously, a very fine line there, what I just said, between taking a position and promoting that position in a campaign-like activity. So an opinion with regard to the merits of a proposed ballot initiative is permissible so long as it does not expend funds to mount a campaign. I know you're all thinking, wow, there's the real fine edge here to where this is, and that's true. That's why we need to talk about it and be careful. Permissible activities include issuing a press release containing your position, if you took one, to oppose or support a ballot initiative. And this is a little bit different than we talked back in 2004. Permissible activities include preparing staff reports to help decision makers determine the measure's impact and what position to take. That's a role that's probably pretty vital in some of these pension discussions, that people would rely on us to do that kind of activity. For additional permissible activities include providing links to nonpartisan analyses, taking a position on a ballot initiative, an open and public meeting where all perspectives might be shared, and it's acceptable to accept invitations to present our views to organizations that are interested in the ballot measure's effects.
Including our position on a ballot initiative?
No.
Already. Sharon had a question
Well,
also.
I'm just wondering, so what you're talking about right now is CalSTRS and their communications, so not board members?
Well, in a minute, I've got a slide
Okay.
on you.
Because that's coming.
We'll be there in a minute.
We're
So
next.
you get there and then
We're next.
We'll be there in a minute. And
move
staff
on.
too, and it's not just about you, of course.
Okay.
There's a gray area here, and you know, obviously I've read you different activities on both sides that are not perfectly defined, and so there is mostly definitely a gray area. And the courts have said that they will look at other factors of style and tenor and timing to determine whether or not we've inappropriately crossed the line. So there's most definitely red zone to this discussion. When do these rules apply to our communications? Well, there's no doubt the rules against the use of public resources are triggered once a measure is actually qualified for the ballot. That's a black and white test. But unfortunately, the leeway is not absolute, and the recommendation from our council is to follow these guidelines at all stages of the process, to be careful, which would mean that they would be in effect now in what we talk about. What can CalSTRS board members and our staff do in their private capacity? Well, of course, you can work on a campaign during your personal time. For our staff during lunch hours, breaks, vacations. You can make a campaign contribution using your personal funds. You can pay for and attend campaign fundraising using your personal dollars and make campaign appearances during their personal time. But the last bullet is probably the big one to triple asterisk. I mean, clearly your role as a board member, or my role, if I were to appear at a meeting and articulate a position, I think they would assume as my job as a CEO that I must be representing CalSTRS and be the perspective of CalSTRS. And that'd be a very dangerous communication to make in that fashion. So if I were in an informal gathering or talking about these ballot initiatives, I would go out of my way to affirm that there's no presumption that I'm representing the organization, you know, in that perspective, unless you had taken a position to articulate. So you do want to be careful in making sure that people don't mistakenly assume you're representing the board's position when in fact you're legally expressing yourself as you're certainly entitled to do. These are kind of obvious, but strangely, people screw these things up, you know, in using resources.
So Jack, along the lines of the disclaimer,
Yeah.
I know that our ex officio, well, I shouldn't say ex officio. I know that we've had members of the board that have had to recuse themselves on a particular issue, and a statement is read into the record. Can we get a disclaimer written for us that covers us? Thanks.
Sure. Sure.
So we don't just, you know,
Well, it's not unlike if you ever heard an SEC commissioner do the preamble to any presentation.
exactly.
The
The views I express are solely my own and not the reflection of what, right?
This would be a version of that relevant to the law of this.
That's
Yeah.
about as far as I could go.
Your mileage may vary.
Again, these may be obvious, but we just want to make sure we say them. We should, board members, employees, and there should not do in their private capacity is use our letterhead when communicating their personal support or opposition for a ballot measure. Using a job title here or your board title when communicating that on a personal basis. Use any of our email systems or cell phones or any of our technology tools to be communicating those activities, or traveling at the system expense to express your personal views of those.
Can you back up to the last?
Can you?
Sorry.
Yeah.
Yeah, sorry.
No, you're good, you're good.
So the CalSTRS job title when communicating support and opposite, I'm just anticipating what's happening in my world. So I get asked to speak, you know, at a community college or at a district or something for some benefits conference. And so now they're saying, oh, you know, this is Sharon, CalSTRS board member. So should I just ask them to call me LA College Faculty Guild retirement liaison? And then I give, because I'm talking about these initiatives, I'm talking about politics, and what would you advise? Maybe, I don't know if that's a question for you,
Well,
Brian, but.
one is that, you know, if you're communicating around the ballot initiatives based on your personal analysis, not staff analysis we've
Absolutely,
provided.
of course, it's my personal analysis.
Or your other affiliations analysis.
Right.
You know, I guess I would have provided that disclaimer, but I'll let you should be doing that.
I'm just wondering how you want me to handle that, because
Yeah,
I don't
that-
always have control over how people introduce me, even though I
That's
tell them.
exactly why we're having this conversation.
You know, keep
There's
me
a-
out of the CalSTRS board title. you
There's
know.
a number of you with two hats on. You're one, Pedro is absolutely a two or three hatter. So we do want to, this is exactly why we're conversing about this.
Yeah, the disclaimer is a good practice. One of the situations that we envision could be a problem for board members is if there's an agenda or there's an announcement and it says Sharon Hendricks, CalSTRS board member, will be appearing, then that's where we talk about the duty to affirm that you're not speaking on behalf of CalSTRS.
So I just need to say, like, make a
Say
disclaimer.
you're speaking
and
as
then
a
I'm okay.
private citizen, or
Got
you're
it.
speaking as a community college professor,
Got it.
a speech professor, however you're doing it, but yes, I think you have a duty to affirm that you're not speaking for us.
Good. Thanks.
Paul?
Well, I think I heard you say two different things. I mean, I can speak as a CalSTRS member. That doesn't mean board member. That doesn't mean I'm speaking on behalf of or representing CalSTRS. Those are differences. I mean, I can go clarify this for me. I mean, can I go and say, here's my opinion about this, and although I am not representing this as the viewpoint of CalSTRS or the CalSTRS board, I am a member of the CalSTRS board, and this is my personal opinion.
That's perfect.
Okay.
That's the disclaimer,
Okay.
it's my personal opinion.
It's your
Right,
personal
but
opinion.
But
not-
I
not-
don't have to say I'm speaking as, you know, an employee of my company. I
Right.
can
No.
say I'm speaking,
No,
yeah, okay.
I was just acknowledging all the hats that
But I
Chairman
think
wears.
we can all appreciate how, depending how quickly you said what you said to an audience, they can blend that occasionally. It's just, we know this is ripe for criticism and people looking for mistakes. And I'm just trying to be careful with all of us today, that's all. But you said it right, just as long as people listen and hear that carefully to what you said. And I do want to assure you,
Hang on, Jack.
oh, sorry.
Michael?
Relative to Paul Siderio, though, is there, and I'd like to get advice from our fiduciary council, is there a danger in Paul saying, I am a member of the CalSTRS board and here is my opinion? Is he now speaking as a fiduciary? And is that something that he should, aside from this issue, that he should be concerned about?
Oh, and Rush back there.
Ian presents a fiduciary training every year, but I think he'll give you a preview right now.
Well, on this particular issue, I would think it'd be satisfactory for any of you just to say this is your personal opinion. Like Sharon asked the question, should she identify herself? Wear disguise or something. I mean, everybody's going to know you're a CalSTRS board member. So I think you just have to make it clear that you're speaking from your personal point of view and not representing, yourself as a board member of CalSTRS or the CalSTRS board. In terms of your fiduciary duty when you give speeches, I mean, you have to be careful not to use confidential information. You have to be careful not to reveal things that are said at these meetings, particularly if they're said in closed session. So those are the kinds of things you have to concern yourself about. But you are allowed to wear other hats when you're outside of this boardroom, and you just have to be careful how you identify yourself. I mean, several of you are union members or representatives. Some of you are governmental. You're allowed to carry on in those capacities as long as people are clear in what capacity you're operating.
Thank you.
All right, Jack?
This was just the last point. I guess my assurance to you, we're very lawyered up on this topic. So really, everything that we're writing internally, we're careful. We've got a structured workflow to make sure it goes through our legal department. And sometimes we even have an outside law firm look at some parts of this to be careful. Given, I watched very carefully what happened in 2004, and I think we can make sure we're doing it right this time here. So that's in place. Half the people in the audience, I think, are lawyers still right now, so they're, I think you should feel protected on this. Any other questions we can answer for you?
Nobody's in line.
Okay, that's all we got then.
So we're just about to finish line.
Do you have anything else
No,
in,
that
in,
was
in
it.
your report?
No.
All righty. On items referred by the committee for board discussion, or the board decision, I don't think we have anything from the committees that we haven't already taken care of. New business and review of information requests. We had the information that Ed presented us on the pension buyouts, and I think he's very clear in our direction that we want to get involved in the prevention and prohibition of that. We also have the policy 600B going back to Brian's shop for some refinement, and I think those are the only two items that we had that came from the board.
Well, one more, you asked Brian for a specific disclaimer.
Oh, How quickly I can forget.
Jennifer.
Thank you, Jennifer. I am so glad you're on top of that. So that brings us to the draft agenda for the next regular meeting. Are there any questions of that? Jack, do you want to review it?
This really isn't the next meeting, it's the next regular meeting, just to be underscore the word regular on that. So as I mentioned in the CEO report, our next meeting is coming up as an offsite in the agenda. It's really focused on some change management issues and the success and the strategic plan from your last offsite. But for April, really the big ticket item is going to again be the valuation, which we have on there as item number 3. And then catching up on some of your board education. We delayed actually your fiduciary training, hopefully anticipating that we understand what the full appointments will be to the board. We don't know what that will sort out to be, but looking at that for that April meeting. And we'll also be reviewing with you the RFP process around the fiduciary council coming up. Yep.
Any questions on the agenda? Okay. Alrighty, then we will take a 5-minute break. We'll clear the room going into closed session. We will.
Public speaker?
Oh, Loretta, I am so sorry. I thought you were just kind of, I'm so sorry.
Well, I was waiting. Public speaker.
You go,
Good
Loretta.
evening. Good evening. It's almost nighttime. Loretta Tagenberger, United Teacher Los Angeles, retired. UTLA retired. We got to give accolades to our Chief Investment Officer. Our Chief Investment Officer, Chris Ailman, came to UTLA retired. They love him. They honor him. But he is a LAUSD graduate. What can I say? That's part of it. But he presented to our members the information that they love to hear. Whether it's good information about the market going down in investments, they still, with the PowerPoint that he had, they're all requesting it because, yes, he gave an excellent PowerPoint. Again, we are very fortunate to have Chris Ailman as our Chief Investment Officer because that monthly that John Chang, sends out, now that it's on the computer, it's wonderful to know that it's there, and we appreciate, Chris, all that's done by your office. Thank you.
Thank you. All right, and you know something, really quickly, Jack, just in case some of our retirees don't come back tomorrow for the investment committee because you have other things to do, I would just like to give you the opportunity or to say thank you again to Jerry for her service on the board. We don't know if she'll be able to come back with us, but if not, this would be your last official board meeting. So, even if you would like to say anything.
Thank you. I love you all, and especially the retirees. Thank you for all the support you've given me. Oh,
Go ahead.
Dr. Sandy Keaton,
Thanks,
United
Sandy.
Teachers Los Angeles, active. We had our pre-retirement conference December 3rd. We had over 350 attendees. There wasn't a chair available. All the vendors had to give up their chairs. And again, Michael Lynch spoke, and everybody loves him. So thank you, CalSTRS, for providing that for us.
Thank you, Sandy. Anytime. Alrighty. Jack, you were just kind of.
Nope, we're done. We're just checking.
You're riding drag.
Yeah.
You're herding everybody out here. Okay, that sounds good. Thanks.